Hello, it's Deborah from Attic Lane, and today I'm going to show you another way of using a technique with a stencil and a black pen to create this sort of an effect. So this was the original card that prompted 2 or 3 subsequent projects working on the similar theme but with different results. And this is ink through a stencil onto a plain white background and then zigzag lines with a fairly thin black pen through the stencil. So this is a card that started it all off because this card proved to be very popular, and I'll provide a link to the video where this card was used. I'm going to show you today how to get different effects using a different stencil. So I've done a couple of cards using the butterfly stencil from the original video. So the most recent one was this one in the last video. So this was showing you how to use a resist technique for the stencil as well, and then completing the card with 2 little butterflies using the same ink and black pen zigzag technique as in this card. And then before that there was this card which uses the same butterfly technique. So there's butterfly stencil, ink through the stencil, and then the black pen. And I'm just looking for the stencil so that I can show you which one it was. It came from, let me put it on some black so you can see, it came from Simon Says Stamp, and it was part of a kit from April 2018, and I'll provide a link to the video where I used this as well. But for this card today, we're not going to use this same butterfly stencil. We're going to do something a little bit different. And we're going to use a stencil by a French company. This is a company called Carabel Studio. They make fabulous stamps and stencils, and I'll provide a link to their website. There are UK companies who get in stock from Carabel, or you can buy direct from France, which is the way that I generally do it. But this stencil is good fun, so I'm going to show you how we can use this one. I'm starting with a little square of paper, and the square of paper has been measured and cut so that it will fit inside a plain white top folding card. And I'm going to create a background. So I've got some antique linen, and because I'm covering a wide space, I'm just using foam pads on a stick, and I can't remember what to call them. These things. I've had these for years and years and years in my stash, and they are very good. But recently I've taken to using these. These are called, technically these are called oral mouth swabs, and I discovered them when I had an ill relative staying with me, and I use these now because they are very easy for small areas. They're great for this sort of thing. I get greater coverage, obviously you can see the difference. Obviously I'm going to get faster coverage using this, but for all other applications where you might need a foam pad, I use these. The other thing is that when you put them down, because they're angled, they're at a sort of a, I think it's probably a hexagon, because they're cut on a hexagon, not on a round, they're not going to roll around on your mat. They also have their own sort of handle, so they're great. They come with their own applicator, and I store them in this jar, and I just have some for different colours. And these are very cheap. These are about 250 of these for about £10. And you can find them online, and I'll provide a link. So to continue with making my nice background, I'm using wild honey to fill in the gaps where I didn't put the antique linen. These 2 colours combine to make a really nice background. The theme of my card is going to be words, and that's been inspired by the fact that my stencil has all the letters of the alphabet on it. So that's my background. I'm going to take a lettering stamp, which I've just lost. Aha, there it is. This is by Impression Obsession, and it's got a code L9724. Doesn't seem to have a description. So it's L9724 if you want to go looking for this, and it's a script stamp and it gets used a lot. I'm going to ink up using the Wild Honey, and I'm just going to add a little bit of ink stamping across the card to give the card some more interest and texture. Ever so slightly on the wong, don't tell anyone, no one will notice. I'm going to just move these to the side because the next colour I'm going to use is Vintage Photo, and because I'm not going to be applying a great deal of this across a large area of the card, I can use my little foam thing. So to begin with, I'm going to go around the edges. Now I'm actually going to cheat a little bit because I'm going to show you this card, I'm going to show you how to make this background, and then I'm going to move on to another background that I made earlier. This is what we're going to make. So this is, I'm showing you how to make the background, but because I'm a bit of a neat freak, it took me absolutely ages to make this this background. So I'm going to show you how to do the background first, and then we'll move on to then I'll switch over. So it's just, if you see that this one looks different from the final one, that's why. So there we go, a little bit of inking around there. And a little bit in the corners. And it is just a tiny little smudge in the corner, just to use up the last of the ink on my foam pad. So, Vintage Photo. So that's the background. Now, the bit that took me the time was adding the letters to the background. So I've cut the square that we've just done the background on so that it would be the perfect size for this. So I'm going to show you a couple of letters. I'm not looking for a very, very solid line. I'll settle for this sort of very soft outline. So let's assume I've done that for the whole piece. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a black 0.05 nib pen. It's very thin, it's a very fine nib. And I'm going to go through the stencil with my pen and just do this at whatever angle you think works best for you, and put on a small amount to begin with. Because I haven't given the ink time to dry, it means that the ink is still damp and will adhere to the top of my nib. So every now and again I just need to do this. But if you leave this to dry, you won't have to do this because the ink won't stick itself onto the nib of your pen. It's not because I'm impatient, although I am impatient, it's because I want to show you this effect. So that's A, and for B just go sideways. If you've done one at an angle, do the other one at a different angle. And when you're adding your zigzags, keep the pen as upright as you can, because then you reduce the risk of the pen slipping underneath the stencil and spoiling the crisp effect of the letter. So continue with all the rest of the letters in the alphabet, doing that technique with the zigzag on top. I'm going to put that to one side. So I've got everything ready for the next stage. I've moved on to my finished version, so let's just assume that that's the one that I've shown you, and that's ready for the next stage. I'm going to put that to one side because the next stage is I'm going to take a white top folding card and I'm going to take a piece from an old book. So this just happens to be the Old Curiosity Shop, and I'm going to take one of these, oops, got two. I'm going to take one of these sheets of paper. I'm going to use it to cover my card. I'm going to chop the top off because it will make it easier for me to stick to the top of my card. Because I'm not going to cut this off all the way around, I'm going to do something a little bit different. So there we go, that is square up to the top of my card. I'm going to take 3-in-1 glue, which I found is really good for, oh, I keep doing this, I keep taking off this massive, leaving myself with the biggest opening in the bottle instead of the littlest opening in the bottle. But I found that this glue is ever so good for sticking paper to card without making it wrinkly. It's amazing stuff. So I'm going to put oops, some of this all over the card. And I want it to go pretty close to the edge. And I'll show you why. This stuff is just amazing. It's great fun. And it's got one of those, you're probably not supposed to sniff it. It's one of those things you're not supposed to sniff. And they always have that great smell. So, I'm going to put this, excuse my head, I'm going to put this right at the top and hope that it's sort of straight, which it isn't. Of course it isn't. I wouldn't get it straight first time. There we go. That's not bad. That's not bad. And I can feel the glue underneath it. And it's cold, but as you, I don't know, as you stick it down, it heats up. It's weird stuff. I'm still playing with it. Okay, so now that that is all pressed on firmly, instead of cutting, I'm going to rip. And that's why I wanted to have the glue right on the edge of the card. If I remove this and there are gaps of white underneath, I don't mind that. It's going to fit in with the style of the card. But it's better if you pull the paper towards you rather than away from you, because then if you pull it away from you like that, you risk taking a bigger chunk out of the front than perhaps you would like. So there's our card. I think that's quite a nice effect with the paper on the card anyway, I like that. And this is what will go on top of our card. And that works, those colours work together, but there's nothing really tying that background to these colours. It's just a sheet of paper. I want to pull these two colours together. I want to give them a common theme. So to do that, I'm going to use my Impression Obsession stamp again. And I'm going to dip it in the wild honey. And I'm going to go at opposite angles to the type on my card front, like that. So that's not very obvious, but what it does mean is that there is an obvious link now in the colours here and the colour on the top piece. I do like colours to match up and work together. Pop that stamp away. Now I'm going to use my vintage photo again and my foam on a stick, because I'm going to go down these outside edges, and that again is another way of creating a colour relationship between the card front and the card top. So there we go. So that's ready to stick on there. Let's see if I can get this glue top off the right way first time. Oh, look at that. I'm now a glue genius, I can do it. I'm going to glue this onto the top of my card. Almost sort of ish in the middle. Like that. Then the next thing I need to do is have some kind of a sentiment to go on the top. Now I like a card with a sentiment as much as the next person, but every now and again I think I don't want something that's deep and meaningful, or that's all sort of, I don't know, from the heart. Sometimes I just want something that's funny or silly. So because this card is about words, I found a great quote. This is a quote from Steve Martin. It says, "Some people have a way with words and other people no have way." Isn't that just brilliant? So I like Steve Martin, I think he's a funny guy. And what we're going to do is colour this up so that it matches with this colourway again. So that means I'm going to use my antique linen. I'm going to try and find the same foam pad. That's not right, is it? Are you mad? Are you mad? That's not the right colour. There we go, that's better. So very, very softly going to add some colour to this. I'm not going to add the wild honey because it doesn't really need wild honey. I think this will be enough. And then I'm going to go around the outside edge with vintage photo. Now again, I've cheated because I've already done this. So when it goes on the card and it looks a little bit different, it is. There we go. A little bit, maybe just a little bit there. You can add as much or as little, whatever you think. And then when that is attached to that, did you hear the dog bark then? Then it colour matches. So here we go with this one. But I need to make that stand out because at the moment it's being a little bit swallowed by all those layers of stuff going on. It's a bit complicated. So we're going to find another way to make that stand out. So to make this little sentiment stand out, or this little phrase stand out, I'm going to use a piece of card that is slightly larger than my sentiment. I'm going to colour it in just around the outside edge. I was trying really hard to stay clean. It hasn't worked. And then I can put that on there, and I can put that on there, and it will stand out a little bit better. That's better. And I like that so much, I'm going to add more. That's better. That's better. That makes it stand out a little bit more. Okay, let's clear the decks. Let's get a nice clean base going here. While I was cleaning up my workspace, I decided that I preferred a straighter edge here. I didn't want my card I didn't want my insert to be smaller than my card width, so I've trimmed, it's only about a couple of millimeters, but I've trimmed the sides down so that now it's a smooth edge and the top bit goes right up to the edge. I like that. I like that better. And now I'm going to glue the sentiment or the little phrase onto the background. Like that. And I want that to stand out, so I'm going to take some craft foam. This is about 2-3 millimeters thick, it's not very thick, and I'm going to cut out a piece that will fit on the back of my phrase. This is lovely stuff to cut, by the way. It cuts really smoothly. If you need a de-stress anytime, just get some craft foam and just do this. It's so nice, so easy. Maybe it's just me. Okie doke, so let's put the sentiment on top of the craft foam. Like that. This glues ever so quickly, this 3-in-1 to craft foam. It's very quick. Usually I use this funky glue. I've shown you this before. I really like it. I store it upside down. The glue goes into the end. It's always ready to use, but it doesn't fall out into the tip. It's very, very good. But particularly when I'm gluing craft glue, I have to weight it down usually with like a stamping block to make sure that it glues on firmly. This instant grab, wow, like that a lot. That's going to go sit there, so I'm going to put some more on the back, and we'll put that hopefully somewhere near the centre. Yeah, sort of looks a wee bit like it might be in the centre. Yeah, ish. Yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, I think. Let me just do that. Ooh, a bit more that way. I also like, I'm talking to myself, I also like that you've got time to move things about. Ooh, still moving, still moving. And then when it grabs, it grabs. And that's it, got. Oh, so good. So there we go. That is another way to use stencils and inks and a thin nib black marker pen. I'm going to say thank you very much for watching. I hope you found that video useful. I hope you'll try out some of these techniques for yourself, and I will see you next time. Take care.